Hello, welcome once again to Living and Active. This is a video that's going to appear on multiple playlists. So I don't know which one to tell you it's going to show up on. Basically, I'm going to be doing a few things, as I say a few things, and I'm going to try to keep my voice level because I realize how close I am to the camera. I guess I can adjust the volume in post. About 11 and a half hours ago, I wrote a post saying that I hadn't slept, that I was a little bit apprehensive about the extended uh, gathering schedule for Living Active Live in Lancaster today. It was the first one of those. I didn't end up doing the full 4 hours. I did 3 because no one showed up. I've heard from the very helpful circulation clerk that has been very, very helpful. That she passed my contact information along to an ASL signer, interpreter, I think, uh, with the understanding that she can make use of that number or whatever. She would like to get more information about Living and Active Live or take part in it or whatever. Um, and just like everything else that has been offered or presented as an invitation in the building of this thing, absolutely no result so far. I think that particular person is becoming concerned that I'm going to give up. And I really think that people don't understand what I mean when I say all the time I've been looking for something like this in this area, I haven't had it because it hasn't existed. If I have this opportunity to get it started and to nurture it until it grows and becomes self-sustaining, and the opportunity comes and goes, and it still isn't here, then that will be my fault. And it's not going to be my fault. What you're looking at right here, in case you don't know, this is a 5-bar dynamo. This actually came out of a World War II era field telephone. The intent is, at some point, is to find. First, I've got to find the crank for it. I bought it. The listing showed a crank that came with this thing. I opened the box a while ago in the middle of doing a whole bunch of other things. So if there was a crank in it and I set the crank aside somewhere, I have no idea where I put it. But as of time now, this thing appears to be crankless, even though I swore it came with one. So I'll just have to continue getting my stuff put back into its organizational uh, placing and see if I can find the stupid thing, because I can't. And I'm pretty sure I bought it specifically because it had the handle and because it was the only one I can afford. But this does signal a new day and age in Motel's new machine. Here's why it's going to appear on multiple playlists, because this is sort of Zero Dork 30. This is also sort of Model's New Machine. This is also sort of Living and Active Live. And this is also sort of Rolling Towards Eternity. But I have this really cool analog multimeter. I'd looked specifically for one that was analog, not digital, because I wanted to enjoy the feel of the old school things as I like to do. For instance, I have no idea how old some of this stuff is. It's not like they're stamped with dates. I know how old the sewing machines are, but some of this other stuff not really. But I wait for the screen to flip. There you see a very tiny. You'll see how tiny in a second. A very tiny bench vise. It clamps on. See, clamp. And I usually put it on this corner, and that is the vise that I used to fix the pendulum on my 1908 mechanical clock. And I have actual files for gears and stuff like that to go with the bench vise, and so that's where that is. So if you want to see how small that vise is, this sewing machine, and it is an actual sewing machine, it is not a toy. This is from 1926. You back up, that is a full-size sewing machine from the same, pretty much the same year, I think. But this is a hand crank. It's a chain stitch sewing machine. This is called the Singer 12. No, sorry, I lied. This is Singer 20. This is from 1926. I broke it. I didn't break it. I just dropped something or whatever. I'm missing a piece. So it doesn't function right. I took it apart. I cleaned it. I put it back together. And now there's a couple things that don't really do the thing they're supposed to be doing, but it looks really nice. Next on Hit Parade, this is a reproduction of, I forget what they're actually called, but in the Victorian era, these were made of solid brass, and basically what it is, it's a clip. It clamps to the edge of the table, so if you're doing embroidery or darning or something that's a little bit bigger, and it doesn't fit all the way inside your loop, you just need a little bit more stability, you just put the clamp on, and then and then you just clip it inside the bird. That is a bird. You clip it inside the bird's mouth. It holds it very securely. You can do what you need to do. This is a reproduction. The original ones from the 1800s cost like $300-400. This one does not. It came from like the 80s, I think. That's when they're reproducing these. This is as you might guess, this is a clamp-mounted, hand-turned bench grinder that I seriously need to find a new wheel for. But I have all of these things, and this is a toy. This is a miniature sewing machine. This is an actual toy. This is not. But I have all of these things ready and prepared to be a very handy sort of fellow. To fix things that I enjoy fixing and dealing with, to keep my hands occupied, and to have my little dorkiness that comes with learning things of a certain vintage. Let's see if that framing is going to hold. But I have been working. Okay, see, if I could leave it alone, if I could just say, you know what, people are too difficult, they're too complicated. Uh, I'm tired of getting burned. Uh, Trying to do whatever, anything that's outside of myself to help people. If I could actually shut it off, this is exactly what I'd be doing. I'd be hunkered down inside this room, minding my own business, and just tinkering away with things that nobody cares about. The only problem with that is that there's absolutely zero satisfaction. There's no really sense of fulfillment in fixing things that nobody cares about, getting them back in working order, specifically knowing that no one cares about them. I do these things because I want to be able to help people. If they want to get into these things or use these things or whatever. But um, you know, the things that I do for people don't really matter if I don't have the people to do them for. Uh, in case you're wondering, thanks to my introduction, no, I have not yet slept. I've dozed off a couple times, a few minutes at a time, for a grand total of maybe 6 or 8 minutes. But that's about it. And it is currently almost 13 hours since I wrote that post, and I hadn't slept the night before. When the last time was I actually did sleep, I don't recall. But if you've been hanging around this channel for any amount of time, you're already familiar with that. But these are the things that I want to do. I've got the multimeter, whatever. I've got to find the. I think this is a really cool thing. I do. I had to find the handle for this dynamo. The reason I got this because I want to do experiments with it to actually replace the handle with a pulley and use use the belt drive from a hand crank sewing machine to power this thing and run leads from it to the light that would be attached to the machine, so you can sew with light if the power goes out. It's just a nerdy thing. I want to see if I can get at least one of these 100-something-year-old machines that I have around here to do it with. So that's that. That's where a lot of this Zero Dork 30 stuff comes from, is like looking at 2 or 3 things that I have and saying, hey, this kind of sort of goes with this, and this kind of sort of goes with this. So let's kind of sort of see if we can make them go together. I'm taking a wooden plank, which is actually a drop leaf from the Singer 404 that is mounted into the desk over there. And I'm going to set this, because it is a dynamo, onto the wood platform out of my hand, the way of my hands and all the stuff I'm doing, so I don't accidentally put any kind of charge into it, especially since I don't have any way of directing it. And I'm going to put on the bench this wonderful, Let's see if I can get it in here. I gotta adjust this, I gotta adjust this. This is an 1883, if I'm remembering correctly. New Ideal. Obviously, antique sewing machine. This is a genuine article, Victorian era. That's me dropping the camera almost, because hands won't always do what I tell them to. But maybe this will be a better shot of the decal work. You can tell the relative age, in case you don't know, by the fact that instead of having a plate here, up here somewhere with the screw holding it in that you can take off and then oil everything through, you actually have a couple screws here. I think one screw on this one. And you can actually take this, if you can see, you can take this whole side right off in the machine and get to everything that's in there. So everything that's in the upright, you can get to that. It has a very, I love this tension system. I don't know why they ever went away from these. I guess because people wanted very variable tensions for their home sewing machines, and so Stinger and everybody else was like, sure, let's make things more complicated. But spool sits there, thread goes in, routed in through all the ways. I'm not going to show you into here as the tensioner, and then it just goes straight up to here and then around the face of the machine and then down and into the needle. This is a very, very old machine, very gross and dirty. I have been letting it soak in its original intake coat of oil for about 4 months now, because it's just absolutely scuzzy. I got to remember how to do the presser foot thing here is not standard. Okay, that's a problem. It's supposed to go up and stay up. It's not supposed to cycle through. So that's going to have to be fixed. I haven't actually taken this thing apart yet, done anything internal to it. It is a very nice machine. It's a very old machine, but I was more worried with getting it stabilized because it had, as you can see, lots and lots and lots of issues. It's not missing anything though, except for the treadle table and the treadle wheel and everything else that powered it. So that is a bit of a bummer, but it's cool. And because I've recently bought a sewing machine that I believe is going to end up being even a little bit older than this one. I think that one is a, which one is that? I don't know. I took a picture of it, or I saved a picture of it from the listing I bought it from and posted it in the post tab so you can see it if you want, whatever. But so now I'm going to stop monkeying with the camera. I'm going to put the camera down. Try to get you oriented, kind of sorted where you can see what I'm doing. I don't really feel all that well, so I don't really necessarily want to be on camera. But is that sufficient? That is my question to you. Well, there's a great shot of my candle holder thing. Now we get the tools of my trade. Q-tips. A set of dental tools. Oops, chip brushes. Work gloves. Getting all this stuff out reminds me that I was supposed to buy a bulk container of sewing machine oil, since I do these kinds of things and I use a lot of sewing machine oil to clean sewing machines and oil them, as one would imagine. I don't know if I'll be using any of these, but I do occasionally use these on machines that have better finishes than this one. These are cotton rounds. And the other thing I need from here at the moment is cotton balls. Lots of cotton goes into getting these things cleaned up, serviced, whatever. The other thing that I have here is multiple bottles of stagnant water for cleaning, for very, very slow, tedious cleaning of some of the gunk that's on these things. So this is what I'm going to be doing. Let's see if I can do an audible description of what's. No, I can't. I wouldn't know how to start doing an audible description of this for the blind and visual impaired. So I'm going to have to look at it as I'm editing it and try to come up with something for my new blind viewer. Hello to you again. I'm not in the habit of saying people's names on the channel until and unless I have permission to do so. So this is 4 months of soaking in oil. And that was just a little bit of water on the cotton ball, a little bit of pressure, some circles, and that's what's coming off of it. I'm going to have to keep going because the deeper the clear coat in throughout this whole thing is basically shot. So what I'm basically going to have to do is figure out how far I'm going to go to get it into any kind of decent sort of shape to my liking or whatever, where I can consider it stabilized, and then from that point work to build up the protections that I have available for sealing what's left of the original finish and making it so that it doesn't just keep flaking off every time you touch it. And because of the misuse this machine has seen over the last 143 years, I'm basically, I think what I'm going to do, I'm basically just going to get her shined up enough so people can tell that there used to be decals in certain places, and then I'll just go straight to the mechanical repairs, identifying and replacing missing parts, oiling it up, getting it all lubed and everything, making sure it functions with hand operation, and then stabilizing the finish with the combination of varnish and white spirits, mixing them so that they get thinned a little bit and settle down into all the creases and cracks and gouges and everything that's in the clear coat. Probably have to do it a couple times, but just letting it settle and dry and everything else, and letting whatever level it finds be the new surface, because I could sit here and try to get all of this dirt, and a lot of this is dirt and grease and oil and probably quite a bit of cigarette smoke staining. Oh, by the way, people say that when you get a sewing machine that has been exposed to decades, if not a century, of cigarette smoke, it doesn't have a smell because it's made out of metal, and metal doesn't absorb smells. This is true, but all of the nasty stuff that kills people that's in cigarette smoke does have a chemical effect and detriment to the finish of these machines. And so those things actually do get trapped inside of the finish as it deteriorates the finish, and as you go about the business of cleaning these things, you do release very recognizable, if you spent a couple decades enslaved to that particular vice, like I did, you can smell what's there. So don't let anybody tell you that if you're cleaning a century-old sewing machine that looks grimy and sort of yellow and dingy and everything else, that you're not going to smell cigarette smoke when you start cleaning it. You will. You don't really smell the smoke. You smell the tar. It's what you're smelling. Smelling the tar that has seeped into the finish and started interacting with the lacquer and the clear coat and everything else. But going back to what I was saying about the Living and Active Live and all of these other things, the person that was presenting themselves with some level of concern towards me that I might be tempted to give up due to lack of attendance. And for her part, she has invested quite a bit in the success of this endeavor. For whatever reason, I don't know. They're her own reasons. But the truth of the matter is, and I explained it to her this way, is I deliberately launched this during this time. I planned this very carefully. I've had years to plan this. I've had years of trying to start other things in this town, in this city, in this community, and watching them fall flat, no matter how innocuous they were, no matter how free of agenda or whatever they were. This is not my first time trying to gauge the community's interest in something that is good for it in the 4 years that I've been in this city. So I just reminded her that I look at all of these things as an invitation. Invitations, by definition, are meant to either be accepted or declined at the sole discretion of the one that the invitation is being extended to. So, do I think that Living and Active, as good of an idea as it is, the Living and Active Live, that the gatherings are going to do what I'm starting them to do? Truthfully, no, I don't. I think they will do whatever the Lord will have for them to do. In either their success or their failure. But I don't think Living Active Live here in Southwest Wisconsin is going to turn into any kind of momentous thing. The spirit or the intent of living and active might spread to other regions of the country quickly, and that looks like it might be happening. But I think for here, I don't think, and I could be wrong, but signs don't seem to indicate that it's going to be all that successful. And I might be wrong. But my thought on the thing is that I'm not going to be destroyed if it doesn't succeed. It's not like I'm putting all of my hopes and dreams and my uh, sense of self-worth or anything like that into the success of living an active life. As I've stated several times already, it's an invitation. If you give someone an invitation and they don't take it, then the person extending the invitation is not at fault for the person who's been given the invitation to not benefit from it. So I have this is just oil cleaning up the tracks of the slip covers that go over the bobbin shuttle. It's a little bit grody, but it's sort of like people asked me when I was doing the live or doing the guest appearance on the Lift Roll live stream Tuesday. I was asked, well, are you going to do these gatherings? Are you going to offer living and active gatherings online, even separate from the gatherings? Are you going to have an online support group available, just existing by themselves? And the answer I gave was no, because there's already so many groups and organizations and just people that are already doing that kind of thing that is not necessary. If you want to sit in your living room and talk to someone in California through a feed, that's fine. I just did it Tuesday. I just did it again yesterday afternoon or yesterday evening with another channel out of Florida. People can do these things if they so choose. Living and Active Live exists because there are people, myself included, who refuse to be told that they are only allowed to interact with people online, or that the only social life they're allowed to have has to be on a screen. And so that's why things that are live and only live become necessary. But all I can do, realistically speaking, is go with the idea, secure the venue, tell people about it, let people know, and then being myself faithful to show up to all of the scheduled meetings, gatherings, just so that if someone does come, then it's there, it's available. You're getting a lot of movement probably in the camera because I'm This is quadruple aught steel wool, by the way. I'm using the oil that's already on the piece, and I'm kind of trying to knock a little of this rust off. But it is very, very rusty. But it's pretty much all that I can do thus far has been done. And now it is up to other people uh, it is the onus of the people who hear about this through normal channels, word of mouth, the little bit of advertising I've been able to do, to recognize that they might know somebody that could benefit from this thing, and then take the information to them. It is the onus of the people who need this thing that hear about it to say, yes, that is something I need, that is something I want, and these dental tools are very sharp, as I just rediscovered. That's going to bleed. So if I actually want to benefit from this, then I have to make use of the contact information that came with this information that someone gave to me out of their concern for me. And I actually have to call the dude and talk to him and find out what I need to know and give him the information he needs to know in order to maximize the likelihood that I'll be able to participate. Before Living&Active, when I was without a vehicle, when I was in that 2-year slump of just hanging out my apartment and having to work very hard to get out and about, I had my power assist device, my first one, at that point, so I was able to do a lot of the community level networking and friend making attempts that I was trying to do. But for the most part, I couldn't really do much outside of the city I live in because a power assist device is not a motorized vehicle. It cannot achieve highway speeds, and I'm looking for something here. Never mind, they're not in here. And on top of that, they don't have the range that I would need in order to get to the next towns over. To do these things, I'd had to wait until I actually had a van to start trying to do. So what I was trying to do while I was waiting was launch a couple other efforts, initiatives, whatever, in this city that I actually live in. One of them the first one did not have a name. It didn't have any kind of organization. It was just a flyer in the municipal building. It said, hey, look, if you want to try to learn new skills, if you're disabled or if you've had to change your circumstances or whatever, and you're not really confident in, how things are going to be, you can reach out, you can drop me a line, whatever, you can talk and try to figure out, get you grounded, stabilized, whatever, like I'm doing with this machine, trying to get it stabilized and then work on the fixes. And then we can talk, you can bounce ideas off of me or whatever and see what's feasible and all this other stuff. And it was just a poster with a really nice nicely composed photo that took me a little bit to set up, and just the questions. What do you want to do? What do you want to try to do? Is there something that you're struggling with? Even just you need to get out of your own head for a little bit. If you're dealing with a new injury or an unexpected decline in condition or anything, just reach out. So that was the first attempt. The second attempt was Motel's new machine. That was another flyer in many places around the city. And it was literally, if you have these things going on, the first one was up for a year and a half. And I put up the flyers for Motel's new machine. And the question was, oh, that was an annoying development. Sorry for an interruption. I actually ran myself out of memory on the camera, so I had to plug it in, go get everything together, delete some files off, some of the videos that I've already turned into stuff and uploaded. So sorry about the jolt there. I'm trying to remember what I was saying now. But yeah, it's I'm not stressing myself out about the outcome of these things. I've got just about 50 years of being curb stomped by just about everybody I've tried to actually get close to. And the only reason why I keep trying to reach outside of myself is because that's what the Lord has said is pleasing to Him. For us not to become bitter, self-centered, wrapped up in our own whatever to the point that we become absolutely useless when it comes to reaching others. So just like I'm not going to feel bad or like I'm doing something wrong if I don't extend Living and Active Live to include remote access, live streams, or anything like that. I'm doing all of this, and I have been setting myself up. Oh, now I remember where I was when the video stopped. So I've done these things. The Motel's new machine thing, I told people I was trying to help them discover new things, skills, whatever, that they could learn, possibly, to see if, that's something they'd want to do, if they could do, whatever, or see if maybe there was something else that they'd be better suited for that would be interesting to them. So for a grand total of 3.5 years, I had these flyers up all over this town I live in with my contact information, my name, my phone number, whatever. While they were up, I was going out and about in the community as much as I could, building mutually reciprocal and beneficial interactions, I would think, between myself and various people in the community. So it's not like nobody knew who I was. I do sort of stand out with the wheelchair and the power assist device. But after 3.5 years, I just sort of got to the point where I accepted the apparent answer of the people of this city. No interest shown, no contact made whatsoever. So, invitation extended, invitation ignored, equaled invitation withdrawn. So then I started building the library. And I'd heard from a couple people that they were sort of on the fence about getting behind support for an accessible public library in our city until my wheelchair and I showed up in the planning meetings to discuss how one might be built into the pre-existing old library building. So I waited. The proposal got approved, the funding happened very quickly. Relatively quickly, the construction started. It's supposed to be finished before the snow flies next year, or later this year, because we've already gotten the new year. But it's supposed to be done before autumn of 2026. And because, the way I see it, if this town moved on the improvements to the library as something that was justified by being necessary for disabled people, and my presence in these discussions as a disabled person was the swaying thing, then I should make at least some move to not let the people of the city feel like their good deed is going wasted if there's nothing disabled or disability focused happening inside of their beloved historical building that they have to sacrifice for however long that is being rebuilt. And so I started thinking, now, if I'm going to do a disability-centric thing inside of the new ADA-compliant library annex, I can't wait for it to be done and then try to have people help me come up with things. I have to be proactive, and if I really want it to be successful, then it has to be something that's already existing that can be moved or expanded into the library once it's done, instead of waiting for the library to be completed before it gets started. So then I knew I had to go outside of the library for an initial launch. There's a very, very limited roster of possibilities in this city. And when I realized how limited, and when I saw the first signs that things were not going to go favorably, I said, okay, well, if it's going to exist for me at all before this building gets finished, then it's going to have to be somewhere that's outside of the city, still close enough for me to access. I don't know if you can see any of the things I'm doing. I'm just working on the thing, and you're probably looking at like my hands, and then like every once in a while you can see where my hands are interfacing with the machine. I'm doing things. Anyway, I might work for a better angle if I wasn't already pretty sure I'm almost done with this video. So that's when I went to Lancaster in basketball. And it literally became so easy in those two locations where I just showed up, told them the idea, and they said, okay, when do you want the gatherings to be? And I said, are you serious? They said, yes. And I just made some stuff up. I don't have a reason for saying that, it should be the first and third Thursdays of the month at Lancaster, the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month at basketball, other than the fact that I was trying to give myself enough space between gatherings so that I could recover, especially as these things gain in traction, maybe become more popular, more well known, and therefore a greater exertion on me. So that's how it came about. All of this is staging, really, I mean, I'm taking it seriously. I'm going to be faithful to show up to these schedules that I realistically have been working for about 4 years now to gain purchasing. With the other efforts that I tried. But the main goal is to let Lancaster and Boscobel be peripheral victories on the way to the victory of getting something actually established in the city I actually live in. So in order to ensure that success, I'm going to be faithful to keep going to the gatherings that are scheduled as they are scheduled, making adjustments as I become aware of their need, and as I did when I worked in addiction, in early autism, in direct residential supportive care of people with profound mood disorders. Doing absolutely everything that is necessary to remove every excuse. Well, that doesn't exist in this area. Well, now it does. Well, I didn't know about it. Well, I'm working on fixing that. But I can't get out. Well, the people that know you need this and are trying to get you to benefit from these things are giving you the number of the guy that's running them. So if you need to coordinate with him for transportation, you can do that. You know, with addiction, I was in the clinic that I worked in Louisiana. You know, it was, it was the self-defeating talk of you're always going to be an addict. It's a disease. There's no cure for it. Blah 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 blah. And you just roll up with the truth and say that, well, it wasn't a disease when you started building the patterns of behavior that led to the chemical dependency. It's not a genetic predisposition to either be more susceptible to addictive behaviors or not. It is a matter of choices, determining behaviors, determining patterns, determining character. And there are ways of seeking restoration instead of settling for recovery. For the early autism work that I was doing with a completely different organization in a completely different spot on the map of this country, I quite accidentally and regularly demonstrated that the basic premises of the way they were identifying the shall we say the markers for these kids were flawed at best, fraudulent at worst. And so I didn't work for them very long. The same thing when I was working with the adults with profound mood disorders in direct supportive residential care. I proved to the administrators of that program that it didn't matter how closely you followed the BSP, which is Behavioral Support Plan, these people were going to continue to do the things that they were in care for doing, because it was a heart issue, not a conditioning issue. They didn't believe me, and so with the 3 or 4 programs that I was involved in my time there, I I set down as the ability, the awareness for all of the programs to come into 100% compliance with the BSP, documented everything where the individual programs and their staff uh, refused to knuckle down and actually stick to uh, the client's uh, behavioral support plans, made sure that the one main program that I was actually at all of the time was 100% adherence, and demonstrated through that 100% compliance and adherence and everything else that even with that level of uh, sticking to what the program was supposed to be, they weren't going to get to the result that they said they were trying to reach. And that was proved very thoroughly, very efficiently. And then I didn't work there anymore. And it's the same thing. I am always about, in most of the relationships I've had too, it's been the same thing. It's like, okay, I will give you absolutely every opportunity to make every single mistake of your own free will. I'll give you every single reason. I'll remove every excuse from you as to why you settle for bad behavior, make mistakes or whatever, as much as I can, but I cannot overcorrect for your own free will. I can't do it. But you're going to be left with the fact when you make the bad, hurtful decision that wrecks generations of a family with one single fell swoop. You're going to know that you had absolutely every opportunity to make a different choice other than the one you did. And you're going to understand that the consequences were 100% avoidable, and you chose not to avoid them. And that's what this is here. I know I need this thing. It would be nice if I had these things. But in the end, truth be told, I know we are going home soon. I know the Lord will very soon himself descend from heaven with a shout, the trump of the archangel, the voice of the archangel, and the trump of God. And the dead in Christ will be raised first, and we who remain will be caught up together with them in the clouds, and we will be forever with the Lord, never again to be away from him. And I know all of this is happening extremely soon. It would be nice to be able to make some friends here on this side of all of those events. But realistically speaking, as I keep saying, none of this is for me. If I wanted to, I could be completely pragmatic, shut my emotional centers down, as I've had to do over and over and over again, cauterizing myself against further damage, and say, you know what, I've got plenty to worry about with my machines and my tools and all of these other things. And then, people have apparently made their choice, and so forget them. But there's still opportunities. There's still room for more to be done, for other people to hear the call, to see the invitation, and have a chance to respond to it. And that's why the invitation is out there. That's why it exists. If nobody here or around here decides to accept that invitation, I'm going to keep maintaining my faithfulness to the schedule that's already established. And I'm going to keep telling people in other areas whatever they need to get the momentum, I guess, to start trying something like this in their areas so that they can also extend invitations for people that don't have this, who say that we'd like to have this or whatever, to either take part in it once it appears or not, as they are free to do. The consequences of either accepting or declining the invitation are not mine. Sort of like the watchman on the wall. If I sound the warning and no one responds, that's no skin off my teeth. If I do all this and the invitation exists and it is known and widely known that someone has reached out their hands, has gone through seeking the people who have been isolated, left aside, marginalized, whatever, and they don't go to, and there's no response, then I've done what I can, truthfully. So, it's not like I think that if living an active life takes off, all of a sudden, all the Bible prophecy stuff is just going to go away, and poof, Leland's going to be happy, and he's going to have his friends, and maybe a girlfriend, and maybe it'll turn into a wife or whatever family situation, and everything's hunky dory. I know better, but mercy and kindness and not being bitter about the way a life has turned out is found inside holding the invitation open and the opportunity open for other people, even especially if it doesn't hold the same potential benefit for you. That's my thoughts on it. So I realized when I had to when I had to clear some room on the memory card that I had already had 2 segments of this. This is probably bordering on a third. So I'm going to end this. This is going to be a very long video. I hope you saw some cool things, heard some things that might give you a little bit of shoring up. Don't be afraid how to think of things so that you're not putting the weight of success or failure on your own shoulders or whatever. Do what you can. And then it is up to people. People have accountability for how they respond to things, whether they accept invitations or not. And that weight's not on you. So until next time, Hebrews 11:6, without faith it is impossible to please God. For those who come to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. So until next time, if there is a next time, and there might not be, God be with you.